The flashing red and blue lights cut through the night, pulling a black luxury car to the side of the road. Inside sat a man who carried himself with quiet authority, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, dressed in a tailored suit. To the officer, walking up to the window, he was just another black man to interrogate, another target of suspicion. But what the officer didn't know was that this man held a power greater than his badge, greater than the flashing lights, greater than the authority he thought he owned. On this dark roadside, arrogance and prejudice were about to collide with justice at the highest level. By day, the city pulsed with noise, power, and movement. But on this evening, the streets had begun to empty, the glow of street lamps stretching shadows across the pavement. Behind the wheel of a sleek black luxury sedan, a man in his early 60s navigated the road with calm precision. His silver hair caught the faint light, his rectangular glasses reflecting the passing glow of traffic signals. He was sharply dressed, dark tailored suit, crisp white shirt, a deep burgundy tie, carrying the quiet dignity of someone accustomed to weighty responsibilities. To a stranger, he might have seemed like any other professional heading home late, after a long day. But beneath the surface of his composed demeanor rested decades of discipline, perseverance, and authority. This was not a man who had stumbled into success. He had earned it through brilliance, sacrifice, and an unshakable commitment to justice. Yet none of that mattered now, not on this dark stretch of road where flashing lights suddenly appeared in his rearview mirror. His heartbeat didn't quicken. His hands stayed steady on the wheel. This wasn't the first time he'd been profiled, not the first time he'd been reminded that, to some, his skin color erased every accomplishment, every title, every truth about who he really was. As the patrol car drew closer, he eased his vehicle to the side, guiding it to a smooth stop. The quiet hum of the engine faded as the night closed in. Outside, the silhouette of a police officer emerged, heavy footsteps approaching with the self-assurance of authority unchecked. What the officer saw was just a man, another black driver to question, maybe to intimidate. What he didn't see, what he couldn't imagine, was that he was about to challenge someone whose power stretched far beyond this roadside encounter. The officer's flashlight cut through the night, its harsh beam bouncing off the polished surface of the black sedan. It lingered on the license plate, traced the edges of the car's gleaming rims, then fixed itself squarely on the driver's side window. Inside, the man remained still. His hands rested clearly on the wheel, steady, deliberate. He had learned long ago that small actions could be twisted, misinterpreted, turned into justification for violence. His stillness wasn't fear. It was discipline. The discipline of someone who understood how quickly prejudice could escalate. The officer approached with a swagger that carried both arrogance and assumption. His hand rested on the holster of his weapon as though danger lurked in the tailored suit before him. To him, this wasn't a respected figure of the nation's highest court. It was just another black man behind the wheel of a luxury car. A question mark that needed an answer, a target that fit a story he'd written long before tonight. Leaning down, the officer shone the light directly into the man's face. Silver hair, intelligent eyes, calm expression, none of it registered. Instead, suspicion flickered across the officer's face, suspicion mixed with disdain. The stop had no real reason beyond bias, but that hardly mattered. What mattered was power, and in this moment he believed he owned it. Minutes dragged as the officer demanded explanations, none of which were owed. His tone sharpened, his questions circling like predators, each one dripping with unspoken accusation. Why was he here? Where was he going? Did this car belong to him? Each inquiry carried the weight of assumption that success, dignity, or ownership did not belong to someone who looked like him. The man answered with silence, or with the kind of minimal responses that revealed nothing yet protected everything. His calm presence seemed to irritate the officer further. Prejudice fed. On submission, and when it found none, it grew restless. The officer's posture stiffened, his voice louder, his demands more forceful. On the side of that dark road, the imbalance of power was on full display. The flashing lights painted the man in a false glow of suspicion. Passing cars slowed, curious, eyes glancing at the scene but never stopping long enough to see the truth. And yet, within that imbalance, a quiet shift was taking place. The man's composure was unshakable, and it unsettled the officer more than resistance ever could. There was an aura about him, an unspoken authority that didn't come from fear, but from a deeper power, one the officer had yet to recognize. What made this moment so chilling was how ordinary it was. Across the nation, scenes like this unfolded, daily, innocent lives interrupted, dignity stripped, humanity reduced to assumptions. But this time, the officer had chosen the wrong target. This wasn't just another man to intimidate. This was someone who carried the weight of justice itself, someone who could shift the very foundation of the system the officer thought he controlled. As the confrontation stretched on, tension thickened in the night air. Each second carried. The question of how far this would go, how much further prejudice would push, how dangerously close arrogance would come to colliding with truth. The man remained silent, his presence alone a storm-gathering strength. And when the moment came, the reveal would strike like lightning. The officer's voice had grown louder, more forceful, as though volume could substitute for authority. He barked orders that were unnecessary, his flashlight still fixed like an interrogation lamp. The man complied only in the ways that mattered, hands visible, movements measured, silence steady. His refusal to cower made the officer uneasy, but he masked it with aggression. Finally, the officer demanded identification. With a deliberate calm, the man reached into his jacket pocket, his every motion slow and intentional. From the leather fold of his wallet, he withdrew a card, not ordinary but one embossed with the seal of the United States. He held it out, steady, offering it beneath the glare of the flashlight. The officer snatched it, his face twisted with the smug satisfaction of someone convinced he had cornered his target. But as his eyes traced the words, the smirk faltered. Confusion replaced arrogance. His lips moved silently as he reread the title, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. The weight of the card seemed heavier than any badge, heavier than any weapon strapped to his side. The truth hit him like a jolt. The man standing calmly before him was not someone to intimidate, not someone to belittle. He was one of the most powerful arbiters of justice in the nation, a man whose decisions shaped laws and lives, a man who carried authority beyond the officer's imagination. For a moment, silence ruled. The flashing lights still pulsed against the night, but the power had shifted. The officer's posture crumbled, arrogance leaking away, leaving only the stark reality of what his prejudice had cost him. The man did not gloat, did not lash out, did not need to. His authority was not proven through anger, but through truth. And in that truth, the officer was left exposed, not just as an individual with unchecked bias, but as a symbol of a deeper injustice woven into the fabric of everyday life. What had begun as a routine act of profiling had transformed into a moment that would echo far beyond this roadside encounter. Justice had revealed itself, not with sirens, not with force, but with undeniable truth. The officer's silence stretched long after the truth had settled in. His authority had evaporated in an instant, replaced by the uneasy realization of what he had done. For the man standing before him, it was not the first time, nor would it likely be the last, that his skin color had been made into a weapon against him. But this night was different, not because he finally proved his worth, but because his identity as a Supreme Court justice illuminated a truth far larger than himself. He did not stay to watch the officer stumble over apologies. He did not linger to savor the shift in power. Instead, he returned to his car with the same composure he had carried all along. His quiet dignity was a reminder that his worth had never needed validation. His power did not rest in the officers' recognition, but in the unshakable reality of who he already was. As his car pulled back onto the road, the flashing lights disappeared into the distance. The night grew calm again, yet the impact of what had happened lingered like a shadow. That roadside stop became more than a confrontation. It became a mirror reflecting the ugly truth that even the highest office, the most prestigious title, could not shield a black man from prejudice. And perhaps that was the most chilling part. If a Supreme Court justice could be reduced to a suspect on sight, what did that mean for those without such titles? What did it mean for every father, brother, son, or daughter who faced the same flashing lights without a badge of status to protect them? The answer, heavy and unavoidable, spoke to a reality millions already knew too well. Dignity should not have to be proven. Humanity should not have to be earned. This story is not just about one man's encounter. It is about all the moments, unseen, all the stories untold, all the lives interrupted by prejudice disguised as procedure. So the question lingers for us. If justice can be profiled, how safe is anyone else?